Now that we are recording, officially, thank you for coming to this meeting of the minds as we connect really around our outreach, and that's really why we're here. A little bit of context for this meeting. For a long time, the Inclusivity Board has really sought to be a little bit more front-facing, outward-facing in regard to being out in the community, trying to support a lot of the initiatives, but also being points of contact to where we can build trust in the community, build presence in the community. We acknowledge that a lot of our persons who are in the quote unquote boundaries of Westminster, the city of Westminster, may not always feel comfortable going to a formalized events that the city holds. So one of the conversation points was, how do we get out into the neighborhoods more actively, get into the communities in a much more uh, proactive way, right? To try to build those connections. And with the Senior Resource Center coming on board, they had talked about, their need for, or their desire for people to do like neighborhood gatherings, to where maybe the Inclusivity Board could help with, going out, getting to know your neighbor type activities. And this has certainly been aligned with some of the efforts that, Rich, I know you would know from years ago, when we would try to get out into neighborhoods and do the things. I know we helped many years ago with Welcoming America, when that was an initiative that the city adopted, and we were the ones that basically hosted the luncheon that brought a lot of people together. We also did, which I thought was pretty successful at the time, um, a sort of a living survey where we had a forum that was in person, and people came to the forum and just gave us feedback, which has driven the strategic plan of what we've been doing. So we felt like it would be important to come together as a subcommittee group, because in our very limited time in the regular monthly meetings, there's a lot to address and a lot of things come up. So this hopefully is one opportunity for us to kind of get ahead and sort of steer some of the efforts of the Inclusivity Board, so we could be a little bit more presentational and proactive on our own end, and not sort of spin the cycle during the meetings, so that we can really just get right into the action. I guess that's kind of my point for this. So the Senior Resource Center definitely wants to be a part of, what we're doing, but we just wanted to open it up to talk about what would be some of the opportunities that we could see our Inclusivity Board doing. Also acknowledging that the people on this call shouldn't be the only ones doing everything. You know, that's a whole other thing about sort of the shared leadership model that I think we really need to in tune with, because it should never be person dependent. But I do believe that we should at least come out of this meeting with some ideas about how to move forward, so that the Inclusivity Board has some drive and focus in that way. Does that make sense? Was that a lot of words for just kind of a thing? Okay. So that's kind of where we are. So Rich, I know you have history. Amy, first of all, welcome. I know we haven't really gotten a chance to connect, but we're excited that you're going to be working more directly with us as the Inclusivity Board, and looking forward to that work. Does everyone know everyone? I guess that would be the question that I'd want to make sure. Rich, do you know Amy and what Amy does and kind of what her role will be?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, maybe we should do that a little bit too.
Yeah.
Amy, do you want to introduce yourself and kind of talk a little bit about what your role will be with in regard to the Inclusivity Board and what you do overall?
Sure, absolutely. So Kate and I will be the new staff liaisons, and my role at the city is I'm the library services manager. So I oversee both the Irving and College Hill libraries and all of our library services programs, outreach, et cetera. And so excited to be a part of the Inclusivity Board and seeing how we can help both in my role at the library, but also the broader city.
Thank you, Amy. Rich, you know Kate, right?
Do you
Kate,
want me to?
yeah, you just want to do a quick
Yeah.
introduction, just
Sure.
kind of,
Sure.
yeah.
Um, as Amy said, we're co-liaisons. So I'm also in Parks and Rec. I'm in the operations division, and I'm the cultural affairs coordinator. So I kind of catch all things sort of public art, historic preservation. I'm super interested in the work that the Inclusivity Board's doing, because the decisions we make about the art that we display in our community, and what we preserve from a historic preservation standpoint, needs to be inclusive of all voices. And I think that for me, that just the work that you're doing just really aligns a lot for those things. But I'm also very passionate about the work that you do. So.
And I know he's pretty humble, but Rich is an accomplished artist and writer and all kinds of things. But Rich, do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit, and then just for Kate and Amy's information, talk a little bit about your history and what you do?
Okay. I don't know if I can make my voice work here. Yeah. I don't know if I can say any more than you did, Justin. Anything I say will probably be a come down. Um, but yeah, I've been retired for several years now, and the closest thing I have to a job is working as an artist. Be going down to the studio actually this afternoon after we're done here to get ready for Open Studios, which is tomorrow night, and you're all welcome. But it's at the 40 West Studios, which is
Oh, nice.
let's see, 1615 Reed Street. It's just a block or two north of Colfax. But anyway, so yeah, I was involved before there was an inclusivity board with the study group that uh, considered the question: do we need an inclusivity board? And pretty much the unanimous finding was, yeah, we sure do. Um, and so I think Donna and I are the only two left from that era. And so I've been interested in this in a long time, partly because I'm a Baha'i, member of the Baha'i faith, which teaches unity and diversity. So there can and that there can be no justice without participation. Um, and so that gives me a good reason to be here. Plus the fact that I'm personally very interested in seeing that everyone is included, because we just have a lot more interesting community if that's the case.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. Yeah, it's done a lot of great work, really laying out the foundations and the drive of what our inclusivity board is. I'm Justin. Amy, I know everyone else knows me, but I have been on the board since its actual inception. So I jumped on right at the end of the task force, and as the board became a formal piece. I believe I've been chair since I'm the second chair of the board since I think it was 2018-ish. Has it been
Yeah,
that long?
I think so.
Yeah,
A long
2019.
time, a long, happy time.
Yeah,
I don't know. People like to be punished, I guess.
you're
So that's
you're doing fine, Justin.
oh, well,
Yeah.
thank you, Rich. Appreciate you. But I'm
Don't
very
stop.
passionate. Yeah, no, unless somebody tells me otherwise. I am an educator, so education, access to education, knowledge, information is very important to me. I'm also very connected with LGBTQIA plus issues and events, and advocate for like sex education, healthy sort of sexual intimate relationships, consent-based pieces. So that's super important to me, kind of in the Denver wider community. I don't even know if a lot of our inclusivity board knows some of that background of what I do, but so yeah, so those are the things that that this kind of who we are a little bit, Amy. So that's kind of who some of us are working with, and we're looking forward to working with you. But really getting into the heart of this meeting, the big thing is our board wants to be more forward facing. We've talked about ambassadorship to where, we can't all do everything, but, we were trying to at least figure out sort of passion areas so we could go out and start really reaching out in those regards. Like both Rich and I are very much in tune with the arts as well, and I know that's one passion area. Rich has also been a huge advocate for affordable housing in our city and in the state, frankly. Rich, you've probably attended more study sessions than a lot of people that I know, and a lot of advocacy positions. And I know you would say it's never enough, but I know it's been a point of focus for you. but we really have acknowledged that, the city could maybe look at doing a couple of different things regarding outreach around how we connect to the residents within Westminster. And one of the things that we've talked about and somewhat challenged the city on is that we can't expect everyone to come to the city. The city's got to go to them. And so one of the things that we want to do is we want as an inclusivity board to help fill that gap and to help fill that role, because we're an advisory board to the city, but we also want to get out and collect information and be with the people and figure things out. So I think one of the things we had talked about is we had talked about seeing if we could host our meetings, and I know we talked about tech at different points, like places of worship, for example, or places that may be relevant and important for people in the city that won't necessarily come to the city hall, but they will go to these community centers that they know. The other thing is really working with, I think it was Chris, right, from Senior Resource Center, Chris,
Yes.
to really start thinking about, could we do these neighborhood gatherings? Could we actually have like these in conjunction with them as a partner? Could we do some outreach and represent as the inclusivity board? And those are just a couple of ideas. Rich, did you have anything that like you had thought or that I'm missing completely?
No, I think you pretty much nailed it. I think it's sort of a matter of winnowing down, and maybe targeting. We've talked about community before, and building community, and recognizing that it's not necessarily living in geographic proximity to somebody, but particularly these days, there are a lot more ways of defining community. And then how do we do that, and how do we then make that connection?
And then just conceptually, one of the things that we had done working with previous city staff is, for like the events, like, the festivals and the things that the city have put on, the city really started coming to the inclusivity board as a partner for like ensuring that like all of the entertainment was, reflective of the diversity within our community. So, I think there was years ago, people had just kind of thrown out a lot of different bands and stuff. And we asked, well, where was the inclusivity aspect of that? I know that this board has also helped support some of the policy around how we rename, for example, city parks. What are some of the, we don't, with the fact that, for example, Stapleton became, a derisive point because of the not great inclusion they had as a governor of Colorado, like, and they renamed it. We really tried to do some of that work. So just Amy, giving you a little background and trying to be conceptual, but at the same time, start focusing on what it is that we could do for immediate next steps. It's a little hard because, I don't want this to be driven just by Rich and myself as the inclusivity board. I know Miguel has expressed interest in really aligning with the Senior Resource Center to partner doing some of these smaller like neighborhood events. So I think one of the immediate action points we could have is one of us reach out to Chris, and I can certainly do that and just start planning out what that would look like, and then bring people on board and up to speed as we go. Rich, do you think that would be a maybe a good step for that?
I think it's a good start. Yeah.
Okay.
So Justin, is there any opportunity to include Miguel, since I think he's joining that board, the Board of Senior Resources Center, and then also thinking about it in relation to things that the city's already doing. So maybe there's a movie in the park and you can talk to that neighborhood and invite them to the movie or something. So it's not necessarily creating a whole new event, since there's not a budget for this board anymore. And it would help with the staff capacity, and you'd have support there easily, that sort of thing.
Yeah, Cody, and you make a good point. I think one of the things that I would recommend, I can't formally do this during meetings, but Rich, I don't know what your thoughts are. We really we were going to maybe create a Google document and have all of the city events outlined so that there'd be a representative specifically of the Inclusivity Board at as many events as we possibly could, not the same person, but rather, just like we'd sign up for an event or two that we could attend, and we just go and be a part and really, really connect with people that way. I also think, Miguel, we talked about the importance of community walks, neighborhood walks, right? Maybe not necessarily door to door, but that's kind of what Chris had implied, like going door to door, like in a chosen neighborhood where, we have more population who would be identified as aging, right? Or, and I know that, was it Cody? Someone had brought some statistics around the neighborhoods that may have um, the most demographic that we would maybe focus on, so that we
Mhm.
could like make them feel welcome and valued. Another aspect I know that Donna has been talking about is like, there is such a lack of transportation. I don't know if there's anything, you can't do anything if you don't have drivers. But if there are members of the Inclusivity Board, like, we talked about maybe even having a meeting over at her place of it's senior housing and living, I believe. Um, we could maybe go as an Inclusivity Board, and she felt like that would be something that would be welcome there. So we're just trying to figure out ways to truly outreach to our community. And that's essentially, those are some of the ideas that have been tossed out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Another place I think we could, I'm getting an echo for some reason. I don't know if you guys are hearing it or not. But uh, some time ago, I was interested in having a more of an ongoing connection with Front Range, um, and they had some staff turnover and had sort of dropped some of what we were hoping to connect with. So I'd like to pick that up again. Being a community college, it's going to be a population that I think may uh, inclusion might be an issue there.
Can we talk about doing your meetings at other locations?
Mhm.
The one thing I'd be mindful of with that is the number of your members who participate virtually may not have that option. We don't have a way to easily move our virtual setting from the city to other locations. So that's something we'd want to think about. Then it would be only in person. Or do you have enough for a quorum? Are we unintentionally, you know,
Mhm.
creating a barrier for folks who maybe can't get somewhere else, right? Because part of this board and staying hybrid is it allowed for some of our members to continue to participate in a way that's easy enough for them to do, right?
Yeah.
So just something to think about with that process. It'd be challenging to make those virtual. Also challenging to make them recorded, which we don't have to do because the minutes qualify for that, but just something to think about. You'd want to have that pretty well in advance and talk to your members.
Yeah, thank you, Cody. I think those are excellent points. The
Good
other
point.
thing too, I do want to say is that I'm not about making extra work for our city staff. It's one thing, I know everyone's at capacity. I beyond capacity at times. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people that are, a part of our Inclusivity Board, a lot of them are doing a lot of different things as well. So really what I think the focus for us should be to try to streamline is how can the Inclusivity Board help without, and let's be realistic, putting any further impact of quality of life work balance on you all on this, meeting. We're not looking to do extra events in that sense, but I do believe that we can be, you can do like an event, like a neighborhood walk or whatever that is. Like it might look a little different. It's not going to be a formal event. I mean, it has to be formalized just so people are protected and you don't just have people walking neighborhoods in a sort of aimless way. But yeah, so I just want to be very clear that the intention is not to think of more things to do. I
Right.
don't think anyone needs to do that. I think our intention will be how do we leverage what we have and do it effectively and really align to the city's strategic plan, which,
Right.
if you read the strategic plan, and I have had an opportunity to look at the overall goals, inclusivity, inclusion. There's a lot of stuff in there that you know, that I'm frankly pretty pleased about as far as the languaging around that. So nor are we expecting our city councilors to add to their already busy schedules either. We're just really trying to do some outreach. So I think that's the
Yeah.
key for us. And if that means individually signing up for events as a start, connecting with Chris, who's already, you know, we at one point also, to Rich's point, you know, let's connect with Front Range and try to work through that. At one point I had gone down to the Arc and really talked with them and had some really great conversation around like community center boards. How do we support persons with disabilities here in Westminster? That all kind of halted because of the pandemic. So we could relook at some of those things again for sure. Another piece that I know has been really more and more discussed is mental health and supports. And of course, we all know displaced and persons who are identified as homeless. That comes up pretty much every meeting that we have.
Yes.
Because I mean, it's becoming, oh, it's not becoming, it has been a challenge, and the challenge grows. And the fact that, you know, the city, of course, we don't have millions of dollars to throw at anything, but we don't really have any long lasting systemic structures of supports or sheltering or anything that isn't beyond a more reactive, hey, it's cold, here's some vouchers to get into hotels and motels. With that being said, I know our navigators and coordinators are doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
So there is no judgment on that
Yeah.
or critique. It's just a matter of our needs are growing, people are getting displaced more and more. What can we do? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And we could definitely, have you guys met with Kate
mhm.
Scarback before?
Oh, yes.
So
Yeah.
then, yeah, you're familiar, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you could always reach out to her again and see sort of what their needs are as well.
Yeah. You know, I think another thing we can do, and I'm not quite sure how to begin to approach this, and it may be some staff education to have that awareness of how if planning an event, to look at it through an inclusive lens. And I can give you a couple of examples. I can't remember which department it was. It might have been Parks and Rec, who were naming the parks and so on. And one of the questions that came up is, well, you know, how do we limit the access to that naming? You know, maybe we should charge a fee or something. And of course, our answer was, well, you know, if you do that, only those who have money have access. Um, but it's possible to sort of think through, you know, who's excluded, who's included in the beginning. And you know, another, this sounds like well, I'm not really trying to criticize anybody, but I suppose it sort of is. When you have a taco event and the tickets are $80, that's not inclusive, that's exclusive. Uh, and you know, while I have not been involved in making those decisions, and so I'm coming from a place of ignorance, you know, about setting that up. Uh, it's it's helpful to, when doing the planning, how do we automatically think, how is this going to exclude, how is this going to include? Um, so anyway, that's sort of a fundamental cultural thing. You know, how do we make that just a given? And I don't know the answer to my own question.
Yeah, Rich, I think that's beautifully put. I think that's one of the reasons we're here. And, you know, to city staff, we're excited about our partnership, Kate and Amy, with you all,
Yeah.
because this could be kind of a back to basics in some ways around how we can actively be utilized. Because a big point of our challenge, we have a little bit of planning fatigue, frankly, in this board. We spent an absorbent amount of time doing, gosh, the first few years of our existence was really about strategic planning. And so those of us who remember that, when you talk about doing any sort of like long-term planning and it takes a while, it's like, we've already done this work. We've acknowledged that we even have data to suggest at least a few years ago what our city needed. I would believe, the statistics would say that, yeah, those are still important times 5, like it's still, those are still critical needs. We talked about homelessness years ago. That need has grown. We've talked about the need for a more multicultural lens around how we plan events and do things. And I think our city has definitely come leaps and bounds
Yeah.
from that perspective. And we can always improve, as we all know, but that's what we want to do, is we want some action items so that we can really assign members of our board and say, these are the opportunities that we have, beyond you coming up with opportunities and bringing them to the board for consideration. Now, what can we do with them? So like, if we can help plan or look at your like, entertainment roster, or, I know Kate, you and I have had sort of pie in the sky dreams about the inclusivity board every step of the process with Arts Week, which is such a natural,
For sure.
you know,
Yeah. And I know you guys were very helpful with Artifacts in connecting me with members of the community. So, and I think we have sort of the precursor, not to sort of go down the rabbit hole of event planning, but when we were doing the cultural festival, which is how North Metro Arts Alliance applied for the funding, the SCFD funding, and then we did the Around the World Street Fair, and then also which then turned into the World Music Showcase. I know that we reached out to the board to identify performers, and you got back to me with a couple contacts. So I think that that's a good first step, to widening that net of who gets involved. Yeah, I think definitely we can keep that going, and you guys can sort of gauge how involved. I know for me, it's like I like to sort of ideate, and then Leah and her team are awesome as to figuring out who needs to be on what stage at what time, and how much time between them, and who needs a green room. And that's not my expertise, but yeah, there's definitely, they want that information. And I think the more context we provide, the better it is. So and that's what we were doing with Arts Week, is it's like cast a wide net. It's a celebration of our community. So.
Yeah. Well, I think then, Rich, if you're okay, and my friends from city, I think what we can do is, I think probably to leverage this, Rich, I think we just present, okay, here's a list of things that we should accomplish. We need to have a meeting with Chris. Who wants to be a part of that? Okay, let's set that up. We need to have a meeting with Front Range Community College. Who's going to set that? Let's have an initial meeting with our library and rec and our cultural affairs friends at the city.
Yeah.
Wants to set that up. And then I think we can more actively leverage like that action planning, Rich, to where we're making steps to meet so that we can start putting these pieces in place and then assigning. And the other thing that I would say is, I would like to maybe see, and I know the city has, there's certain limitations that the city has. It could be just an email chain back and forth around, here are all of the events, who's covering what, who's going to be here at this, I plan to be at the proclamations reading, I think next week. So, but I know, Rich, you were one point.
I do as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be there together, but, yeah. So, I mean, would that sound like a kind of a step in that direction, Rich, that you feel like we could just say, okay, these are the things that are going to happen. Who wants to fill them?
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah. Yeah. And I think certainly looking at them well enough in advance that we're not sort of Johnny come lately and planning, and just throwing monkey wrenches at things. But that we're involved from the start.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, go ahead, Kate, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm trying to type and interact as well. I'm sending Cody the list of the city events, at least for this year. I'm not sure if you guys have that handout. Have you received it?
Yeah.
It has, do you have that one? It has the dates of like the movies in the park and like summer block parties this coming Friday.
I don't know, but if you could share that with me, that would be fantastic because
I'll send it to Cody and have her send it to the
Yes.
whole group.
that'd be
Yes.
great.
And by all means, the door is not closed. I will be at all those events, and I can certainly have a table for inclusivity and help facilitate those gaps in who can attend. You know, so it doesn't, you wouldn't have to be there alone, is what I'm saying. That I'm there anyway.
No,
So
and I love that. And that's one of the things we could talk about as a board. I think we've had some success certainly with when we've had tables, but I think the most success we've had is when maybe we've had a table with some literature and stuff, but more when we're just out and about and milling around and actually connecting with other people, because the other aspect that we really, I think, and I think Rich would share my sentiment here is, you know, it's not about bringing people to inclusivity. It's about bringing inclusivity to the people. It's about like, you know, having inclusivity in everything we do. So we want to actually go visit other tables and see what they're doing to be inclusive or how we can help support them and celebrate them. And you know, so I think that there's wisdom in certainly having like a station, but also like being able to go out and say, okay,
Yes.
what can we do to help? Like it goes back to Rich's point, you know, being proactively inclusive when we're starting these things, as opposed to just stamping an inclusive seal of approval after the fact, just to check a box. That's one thing we never want to do. So,
Well put.
yeah. Yeah, but that would be helpful, Kate, because then we could just look at all of the events that are coming up and I could just be like, okay, here's a list. Let's get some commitment right now about who could do it. Look at your calendars, you know.
I will put that in the chat as well. I sent it to Cody to share with his, I'll put it in the chat. I can't talk and do this.
I got it.
Yeah,
I received
hear
it,
ya.
so I'll send it. I'll send another meeting reminder on Tuesday, but maybe I can send an email from yesterday that just says, here's a couple other things to have to be thinking about as you get ready for your meeting on Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, I know we've talked a lot. We're just trying to be conceptual. I keep the conversation going as much as I can, but I don't always have to lead the initiatives. I would like somebody else to maybe step in on some of the points of
hear ya.
contact for this, just because one, you know, I'm just going to be honest, my privilege and the fact that I'm a presenting cishet male, you know, all well and good. And I will always use my position to empower other voices, but I never want to usurp those voices and intentionally or otherwise. So it's all truly about making sure that people are heard and valued and you know, and seen. So with that, like Kate, Amy, I know you're just kind of onboarding. Would you have any ideas or thoughts, or just like, okay, yeah, or oh my goodness, then, and if you want to run to Cody and scream, I don't think we can take this group on right now. It's totally, no, we're actually a pretty awesome group. I think we're a pretty amazing group of people. But we're also very passionate and you know, we have no problem, you know, I know we've challenged people in the past, sometimes unintentionally, but we definitely have the best of intentions. So yeah. So any thoughts from your end? Like, does this seem like it's a maybe a good starting point for us from your perspective?
That all sounds good. You know, like you said, reaching out to Senior Resource Center, Front Range. You know, I'm happy to help facilitate with Front Range. I mean, we have a relationship, you know, here at the library with maybe not the right person. I work closely with one of the associate deans, but I can certainly connect with who might be the best person. So, and then as we said, meeting with PRNL, those of us that plan public facing events and programs. I think that all sounds good.
Good.
And Kate, anything dealing with the arts or planning for the arts, feel free to give me a call
Oh, yeah.
or connect. I'm happy to be involved in any of those things.
Love to do that. And I did put in the chat the city's list of the 2024 events. So what I can do is make a note to at least have Leah come. I think she has come to the Inclusivity Board in the past to talk about at the begin, because that effort starts about November or so, sort of after event season tapers down. And then they kind of set the schedule based on budget and everything. So they can definitely talk to you. And yeah, looking for connections to inclusive entertainment. That is one of our criteria that we keep track of.
Yeah.
So it's super important to the work group as well.
Yeah, I'm also on the Jefferson County Cultural Council,
Cool.
Allocating SCFD funds. And so I can connect you with a lot of different organizations that that are coming from a certain cultural position, and
Nice.
so
Kate, and Rich, this would be something that, we could talk a little bit, but Kate,
Yeah.
Rich, because I'm sort of Adams County and I know that like North Metro is more the Adams County, aspect.
Yeah.
With some of, but maybe Rich, if you had some of that time, that could be a good, like, you could be a good member of that internal like planning committee that
Yeah.
we have started, Kate, and then, I
Yeah.
can talk more offline about it, but Rich has
I
such
think that's a great idea.
yeah, you have
Yeah.
such a historical perspective, and we've been meeting. I think right now it's like once every month, right, for the time being. We're
Yeah,
gonna
I need to get the schedule set
Yeah.
on that. But yeah, we want to have a pretty consistent meeting schedule. Just so that we're not like and a lot of that was just because we shifted the date.
Yeah.
But we really did have a lot of multicultural aspects. We're going to handle the presentation, the venues more effectively next year. So, but for the, I don't know, 30 of us that made it to the dance group with the Denver powwow dancers, it was a lovely experience, in between these major thunderstorms. So the bigger issue is, where do we have those, what venues do we use so that we're more weather predictable? Sorry, I didn't mean to go off on an Arts Week thing, but
No,
but yeah.
But it is part of what I think the Inclusivity Board could certainly do. And I mean, I know I would
Absolutely.
value, Rich, because Becky's a standing member, and it would make sense to have
Mhm.
somebody represented from
That'd be
Jefferson,
awesome. Yeah.
So, sorry, my lights continually go off and I can throw something at them, but, so yeah, we'll reach out. That's definitely one way. But are we feeling okay if I just present sort of, okay, here's a list of things. Let's start by like representing ourselves at as many city events as possible. Let's start. Somebody needs to outreach. It sounds like Miguel, I think, would be one of the leads on that,
Yeah.
since he's now going to serve on the board, but I'm interested in that as well. And then let's talk about Front Range, and let's just make sure that we're hitting some of these things to start building out the outreach that we've talked about. And then I'll also discuss some of the challenges, Cody, of the potential for trying to do events or trying to do our meetings at different places. It might be that we maybe do it only once or twice, a year, but we try to like representative, like go out and be there. I know Miguel had talked, because I mean, our meetings, traditionally the standard of our meeting has been that we have someone who comes in and guest talks to us for hypothetically a half an hour. Obviously the questions and things usually take a little bit longer than that, about 45 minutes or so typically. And then we try to get through some of our business. But it is interesting to note that we've not had any of those people, and we've used that time fully the past, I think, 2 meetings. So we might have gone out a little bit early one of those, but it wasn't by much. So I know that Miguel had talked about, like, really the importance of these types of subcommittees, so we could really do those reports if we're going to have visitors, or maybe doing every other, where we're not having visitors every meeting. We do it like an every other type thing, unless there's a real critical need for something specifically. When is our next visitor? Do we have another person? We don't have an external person this time, do we?
Right.
Yeah.
No. And I would say some of the last two meetings revolved around the last speaker when Chris came. So
Yeah.
that sort of carried on into the other meetings. But you're right. You've been filling the time. And we don't have anybody else lined up. Probably you're getting close to having, Kate Scarbeck maybe come again. Leah and that team always comes at some point. Yeah, you also have liaisons to groups too so Miguel sort of had kept you informed on the Chiefs Advisory Council for a while. Maybe the chief comes, it's been a bit since, I guess we've had Armando and the chief, and that's all happened in the last 6 months, 8 months maybe. But yeah,
So
probably time.
we just at the last council meeting, one of the counselors wants to do a pride event. And that just popped on our calendar, or not on our radar, on Leah's. And I was in the office and literally like prayed out. I'm like, the inclusivity board's gonna want to be part of that.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I'll definitely so they know that they're just really thick into like event season right now. So they definitely have that on their radar.
Yeah.
To reach out. And that'll be a whole new event.
Okay, well, for next year.
Council wants, they don't exactly know what they want.
Okay,
and
perfect.
I think that's, yeah. And I guess there's an affinity group as well.
And if there's an opportunity, like if council gives us a little bit of parameter, we could help really truly, do some of the groundwork on the planning of that with the affinity group or whatever. Like that could be another point of outreach. Like we help collaborate, create a proposal for you all, like so that then here are some of the things that maybe we would value that would be important to include, and then all of us can help kind of bring that together so that again it's not falling on the event staff. We don't want to be, I've never wanted to be an extra burden to our city staff nor our council. Sometimes we have to be thorny, not to city staff. I've legitimately gotten, I know Cody has sort of had to deal with some of this, but I've legitimately gotten into some pretty heated discussions with some council members. I think our work with Dave DeMott, like I know that he and I don't see eye to eye a lot politically and socially at times, but we've found some common ground and we've been able to really have some good conversations that I think have and I think all in all, our inclusivity board has been good for him. And I think he's challenged us a little bit too at times in good ways. As long as we're not talking about, Indigenous days and Columbus Day at the same time. But beyond that, like, yeah. So, yeah.
That was a good meeting.
Yeah, it was a good
meeting.
meeting. Yeah. Yeah. It was. Yeah. But people felt like they were listened to, and that's the important thing. So, okay. So does that seem like a good plan moving forward? Talking through the events, talking through that, and then just kind of having some open feedback about next steps. Rich, does that feel good for you for this coming meeting?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. All right. Anything to add, Cody, Amy, Kate? Are we feeling good about at least that? Sorry, there weren't more of us, so I'm sure the conversation may have gotten a little bit more in depth, but we'll keep it conceptual, and then we'll really try to say, listen, my focus will be, and one of the things that I'm committing to do, Amy and Kate, is for you all, I am starting to like really put together some structures to where I can personally start like making sure deadlines are met and things like that. So that's not always on you. And then you can just hold me accountable as opposed to the, 13 other people that sit. I know Cody's running around after all of us a little bit like, and then, so we can talk a little bit about what the role is. Cause I think for a while when Cody and I were meeting, probably a week before our meetings, that was a successful model. And then our schedules blew up on mine more specifically. So if we wanted to maybe connect about what that looks like and us kind of front loading the meetings and then talking about like what may come up and how we can support. But I want to take a little bit more of an active role in saying, listen, I'm not the leader of this group. I just facilitate it. It's time for everybody to like make the commitments and do what we need to do. And I can help support the follow-up, but it can't be just like Rich or Donna or myself doing everything. So yeah. Cool. Well, my
Thank you.
electric is up, so, you know, I've gone dark, so at least during this meeting, so.
Reset the timer.
Yeah, I don't, but really appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Amy, Kate. Looking forward to working with you both in this capacity. Kate, I know you and I have a great working relationship already, but, and then Rich, we'll just continue, but, I'll talk to Kate offline and we'll, probably get you onto the calendar. I do think
Okay.
with the FCFDA or the funding that you deal with Jeffco,
Yeah.
the fact that Becky does it with Adams, I think that would just be a real nice holistic perspective since Westminster, you know, does include both counties. So yeah, cool. All right. Thank you all. Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
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 Have a great
Thank you.
weekend.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.